When you're ready. Calling to order this regular meeting of the Bandera City Council at City Hall. It is Thursday, February 20th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Absent are Mayor Shulman and Councilmember Bryce Kavanaugh. Present are Councilmember Glenn Clark, Lynn Palmer, and Jerry Roos, and myself, Mayor Pro Tem Gibson, filling in for Mayor Shulman. We have the City Marshal, Deputy Secretary, and City Administrator present. And Will you lead us in prayer this evening?
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all together today. We'd like to ask for your blessings upon the city of Bandera, our country, and our great state. I also especially ask your blessing upon the city of council this evening as they make decisions that guide our city and our citizens. Most of all, Lord, we'd like to thank you for your Son who died upon the cross for our many sins. We'd ask for your grace and beg for your mercy. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, and item 3 is visitors to be heard. Darcy Steve.
I just wanted to speak a little bit about the issues with Bandera CAD. As you all know, there have been some issues with the Bandera CAD, the Central Appraisal District. I just kind of wanted to go over what could be done about that. If y'all had any questions, or if the public had any questions about what was going on with the CAD, you could certainly see me or talk to me later and get my version of what's going on. Certainly there's always more than one version. However, I would like to go over what could be done with the CAD and what the City Council could do. City Council, I understand that they did not vote for any of the sitting members of the board. City Council cannot push for there to be a recall at this point as far as initiating a recall. City Council can push for there to be a recall by doing something like writing a letter or backing up another taxing entity that wanted there to be a recall. Once someone does issue a recall, a taxing entity does issue a recall, the county, or the city, I'm sorry, will get their votes. And I'll go over that. According to section 6.033 of the tax code, and I'm going to paraphrase, a board member may be recalled if a taxing entity sends a resolution to the chief appraiser, and that would be Wendy Grams until March 15th, that has submitted a vote for that board member that they wish to be recalled. The chief appraiser then notifies each entity that casts votes for the board member so that they may vote to recall the board member or not. If they are an equal or greater number of votes to recall the board member, they will be recalled and will no longer be on the board. The chief appraiser will then have to notify all the taxing entities, so of course that would be include the city. And another election will begin again. So you'll be able to make another nomination, and there will be another election. So y'all will be able to make the nominations, and I would like to ask that you consider nominating and asking for a recall of Bo Mansfield, George Shulman, Nauman, what's his first name? Dale Nauman. Those are the 3 that have been sitting on the board for some time throughout this entire process that has been going on with the PCAD, and through Wendy Grams' issues, and I won't go into that because everybody should know what's going on already. So, but I just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit. I also wanted to show some names and signatures of people that were at least interested in gathering more information. I won't show anybody the names that are on here But I've heard over and over again from the public that they are very much interested in getting these folks recalled off of the board and getting some new board members so that we can have people that actually speak for us because they don't feel any longer that these board members are speaking for us, the taxpayers. So, that's it. Thank you.
And Renee Lee.
So my statement's real simple. I just want to thank y'all for coming to the CAD meeting. I've said to each of the taxing entities how important it is. I thought it was for people to actually come. These taxing entities who nominate and elect these people to these boards. It's sort of, because I've been self-employed most of my life, it would be sort of like hiring an employee on a contract and never ever going back and seeing if that person that you hired on contract was doing their job. But yet when their contract comes up to be renewed, you just automatically renew it. That seems to be what's been happening with this Bandera Appraisal District Board, is these people are nominated and then nobody that nominates and elects them seems to ever go check to see if they're doing the job that you want them to do, or if they're representing your entity as you would have them represent them. So I appreciate very much that Mr. Clark showed up, Mr. Russ showed up, Ms. Gibson showed up, and you can at least see firsthand what's happening when these meetings take place. I have said to some of our county commissioners, I know when I go before Commissioners Court, like when I came here and said, y'all just cannot believe what's going on. I know I sound like a crazy person because you can't believe what's going on. It's just that crazy. But when you come to the meetings and you witness firsthand that there are a myriad of people who are saying the same thing over and over again about the same people that there seems to be an issue with, it's important that y'all see that rather than getting it second-hand, third-hand, fourth-hand. So my comment is really just thank you very much for actually coming and seeing yourself. You don't have to take our word for it. You can see for yourself and make your own judgment as to whether or not these folks are doing what you would like for them to do. So thank you very, very much.
Did anyone who did not sign up care to speak at this time? Okay. We will move on to item 4, the consent agenda, approval of minutes for the meeting held on February 6, 2019. Glenn Clark made a motion and Jerry seconds the motion. All in favor? All in favor and none opposed. Item 5, discussion and possible action on the following items. Presentation, item A, presentation by Marshall Dietrich of annual racial profiling report. Good evening, Will.
Good evening. How's everybody doing this evening?
Good, how are you? Good.
This is something the state of Texas requires every year, that we compile the data and not only provide it to the state of Texas, but also make a formal report to the governing body, which is the city council. And pretty short and sweet, and not anything highly exciting, but it's strictly all over traffic stops and the reporting thereof. For the year, the Bandera Marshal's Office made 676 traffic stops. Of those traffic stops, 253 of those were females, 423 were males, 15 of them were black, 9 were Asian or Pacific Islanders, 491 of them were white, 161 were other. Just these are all things that's what's on their driver's license, is how it identifies them, and 0 were Alaskan or Native American. The third category was race or ethnicity known prior to the stop, and this is a question that's asked in our software that's on the ticket writers and the computers in the car, that the officer has to fill out all these blanks before it will allow the citation to be printed. And it asks you, did you know their race or ethnicity before you pulled them over, or did you find that out when you went up to the car? And of those 676 stops, 40 of those 676 times, the officer knew the race or ethnicity of the person before they made the traffic stop, and the other 636 times they did not. And the reason for the stop, 296 times it was a violation of the law. No times it was pre-existing knowledge, and that would be something like the traffic stop was for, they knew the person had a warrant or something like that was the reason for the stop. Moving traffic would be speeding or something like that, or vehicle traffic would be an equipment violation on the vehicle. And then the fifth one is street address or location of the stop. And every year they add a category or two. This is a new one that they've added this year on the location of the stop. Of course, I have to point out that the second column there is U.S. highway, of which we don't have any, so I don't know if somebody made a boo-boo twice or if our software has a glitch, because we don't have any U.S. highways in the city of Bandera or anywhere close to here. But 440 of those traffic stops were on city streets. None of them were on county roads, and 174 were on state highway. 60 were private property or other, so most of that would be the city park. Generally is where those other or private property would be on. 6 of those were, there were searches conducted. The consent to search was on 2 of them. 1 was a probable cause search and 3 was incident to arrest. And 2 of those searches, they discovered contraband. And in the instances they discovered contraband, those 2 times it was both drugs. The results of those stops, 117 times out of those 676 stops resulted in just a verbal warning. 209 times out of those 676 stops it was a written warning. And 344 times resulted in a citation. 1 instance out of that resulted in a warning and an arrest. 4 times resulted in a citation and an arrest, and once was just an arrest. And the rest out of that, 3 times was based on the penal code, and 3 times were for outstanding warrants. Out of all of those traffic stops, I'm proud to report that no times was the arrest required to use physical force to effect the arrest. So that's all positive numbers, and also proud to report there were no complaints again this year of any racial profiling against any of the officers here at the marshal's office. I don't know if I included in your packet there, we have a pamphlet posted out here in front of the marshal's office in the municipal court, as well as a complaint procedure which is required by law, and it hasn't changed. It hasn't required to be changed, but I don't know if I required it in your packet, but if anybody would like one, I can certainly provide it if you want one. I didn't want to burn up a lot of paper unnecessarily because it hasn't changed, but by all means, if anybody would like one, I can certainly get you one. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, we'll move on to item B then. Presentation by Marshal Dietrich and approval of memorandum of understanding between the City of Bandera and Bandera County regarding the National Incident Based Reporting System.
What this is the state of Texas and the federal government has mandated, used to, well, prior to me starting here, we were not reporting on the UCR, which is the Uniform Crime Reporting Standards, which is why we were not eligible for any federal law enforcement grants at all, because there hadn't been any reporting under this to the federal government. Once we got started on the software we currently have on the top scene, it self-reports to the federal government on the UCR reporting, which after 5 years of reporting to that, we would then be eligible for federal law enforcement grants. Well, the federal government in its wisdom has decided that as of January 1st of 2021, they're going to do away with the UCR and go to a system that's been in existence for a number of years, NIPERS, which is the National Incident-Based Reporting System, which is just far more specific than what we currently have. And we did manage to get a grant a little over a year and a half ago, which upgrades our current software. It doesn't do everything. It requires a lot of human interaction with it. But at least it does where it compiles the data and allows us to do it so we don't have to do a whole lot more steps. But we have to be compliant by January 1st of 2021. In order to facilitate that, myself and Deputy Smith had to go to Dallas for 2 days of training. We've got everything done on our end as far as the software and working towards that. We were recently advised by the DPS that we have to have a memorandum of understanding with the Sheriff's Office because we are not a 24-hour department, because there's times when there is not a deputy on duty. And in spite of the fact that nothing is really changing, that any time, say in a time period when there's not a deputy on duty and a member of the sheriff's office takes a call, they forward the information to us, we investigate it, we handle it, we handle the reporting of it. They felt that they wanted the city council to approve of this memorandum before they would forward it to the commissioner's court. They were a little flustered, they didn't understand where this was coming from, and I explained to them the DPS wanted this, and I'm waiting on an answer from the DPS as to what they're gonna do if the county won't sign it. But right now, they're asking us to try to get it signed. So my first step is to get y'all to agree to it, because nothing is going to change. Currently, that's what happens. Anytime, say if we have a burglary or criminal mischief, whatever happens in the time when we're not here, a sheriff's deputy takes the report, they send us the information, within a couple hours. We handle it, we investigate it, we prosecute it. The only thing is the DPS is concerned, they don't want the information reported twice. And so they want something in paper that says, we promise it's not gonna get reported twice. And, we don't want our crime statistics to, we have a very low crime rate here. We certainly don't want it showing that, if we had 10 burglaries for all of last year, we certainly don't want to add an extra one. Some jurisdictions may want to do that to get more money for something, but we want to keep our numbers as low as possible without fibbing on them. But they want this signed, so the first step is to get the city council to approve of them. And it doesn't obligate anybody to doing anything, like I said, that we're not already doing. It just promises that we'll continue to do what we're doing and nobody will report the information twice.
So Glenn, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move to approve the memorandum of understanding between the city of Bandera County regarding the national incident-based reporting system.
Second.
And Lynn seconds. Please, go ahead.
I was wondering if maybe it might be good if you spoke to this, to Commissioner Mosley, spoke about this to Commissioner Mosley, and then he can kind of talk to you a little bit about how it may be presented to the rest of the commissioners. He's really good about working with the city and trying to get things ironed out with the commissioner. So I would suggest that you maybe contact him about this as well.
Certainly do. Up to now, I had just spoken to the sheriff and the chief deputy, and they deferred then over to the county judge, and I suspected when that happened that this was where we would be. So that's an excellent suggestion. I will give that a try.
Thank you.
I have a question. The years of credit that you were working towards in order to qualify for the grants under the previous program, is this structured similarly? Do you have to use this, or you don't know yet?
Currently don't have any idea how they're gonna attack that.
Or if they'll
that's gonna
transfer
change,
those
or
years
if
of
it's
credit.
gonna, start over from scratch, or
Okay.
they'll do away with it.
Okay.
I'm hopeful that on January 1st, 2021, that everybody will be on a clean slate and starting over. But, I can't really tell right now. Right now, everybody's just trying to hustle to get in line with this and get familiar with it, because it is very complicated and it's drastically different. But it's just it's the difference between previously with the UCR, you could do a report and find out how many. All you could find out was how many burglaries happened in a certain jurisdiction for a time period. Now you can, with this, once it's all in place, you'll be able to find out how many burglaries were committed between a certain time or a certain hour by a certain ethnic group against a certain other ethnic group, and it's very complex, but it's very complicated in the way the data has to be entered. It's a lot to do. So.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Item C, presentation by Camp Gladiator about fitness program they would like to bring to Bandera City Parks has been requested to be removed from this agenda and placed on a future agenda. So moving on to item D, request request for approval of the release of claim for a refund to Leroy Brown for sewer billing that was incorrect in the amount of $1,932.51. Jill?
Yeah. So, most of current council was here a few years back when we had the same type situation happen in the city, and we had to do the same thing. This particular customer has been paying for city sewer when they're in fact on a septic. So, this is the standard letter that was given to us by the attorney with the release of claim that was prepared by the attorney that we gave to the other customer that this happened to. The customer, you know, it's been on their bill all this time, they never noticed it, and after Public Works went out and did the research, it is in the ETJ, so, they can have a septic, and the guys do the funds back, so that's where we are.
Move to approve.
Motion by Glenn, second by Lynn to approve the release of the claim. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Item E, approval of contract from LNB Engineering for $12,000 for a street assessment proposal for a capital improvement project for city streets with LNB Engineering. If I may, I'll call him myself. Jay had brought, and Derek, our city engineer, had brought this, the proposed contract to council that we heard from them. So this was just kind of the next logical step in approving the contract. I would actually like to make a motion to approve the contract pending possible changes at, that the city administrator will discuss with LNV regarding separation of the street assessment between commercial streets and residential streets.
I'll second that motion.
So Glenn seconds the motion. Any discussion or questions about that?
That makes sense.
Okay, so basically Jay will come back to us with revised contracts for approval. Okay, all in favor? All in favor, none opposed. And given that, item F will be postponed as well until the contracts are back and revised. Should I go ahead and read item F and then, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Item F, approval of city administrator to request $12,000 from Bandera EDC for a street assessment proposal for a capital improvement project for the city streets with L&B Engineering. Item to be moved to a future agenda. Unless, Jay, if you have a comment on any of that?
No, what we'll do is we'll restructure the contracts and come back with more than probably one, but it'll be the same total.
Can I say
Please.
something? Do you think that's a good idea that we separate commercial and residential? Because sometimes EDC can cover the repairs on a commercial street.
Exactly,
Perfect.
but
All right.
for some residentials, they cannot. So
Yes.
if they want to do it that way, then, our council wants to do it that way, then that would be the
All
way
right.
we would need to break it down.
Okay, I just wanted to see what your thought was. All right, sounds good.
Okay. Item G, approval of amendment to fee schedule to charge a $50 late fee for vendor permits turned in after the deadline.
Do we need to vote on tabling that item, or we
It's
just
a moot
pass it?
point because we didn't award a contract.
Okay.
So it'll come back with a contract, another contract proposal. Sorry, item G, yes, Jill, or Jay, either of you.
I can speak on it. We have a continued problem in the city of Bandera with vendor permits. Vendors that, I'm sure most of you remember, a year or longer ago, we set boundaries where vendor permits had to be turned in by Wednesday at 3 o'clock for the weekend coming up for these big events. The events at the courthouse, like this weekend for Mardi Gras, we had over 60 permits. It's on the forms they get from Jeannie Strickland. She knows the rules. Everybody knows the rules and when they have to turn in. But we have every event, people coming in, and these are $15 permits. We have people coming in at the last minute, literally this event 2 minutes till 5. Well, I've already paid Jeannie $200 for my booth over there and this and that, and I just forgot. And it's the same people, it's the same thing that's happening. So we're kind of in this place where, you know, we say no, then we're going to be talked about all over town that, you know, the big bad city kind of thing. We do it, then we're breaking the rule for one, then we're going to have to do it for somebody else the next time. And it puts us out. I mean, we have to keep up with these. We have spreadsheets of them. We have to give a list to Jeannie. We give a list to usually the marshal's office so they know who has vendor permits, who doesn't. So one way we feel like we can maybe, I don't know, slap them on the hand is say, sure, we'll do this at the last minute, but you're going to pay an extra fee for it. And maybe they will start turning it in on time. I mean, we've done everything else we can do.
Glenn?
Would it help if we set a deadline like at noon on that day rather than have them coming in at 2 minutes till 5?
Well, we
We've
have a
set a
deadline. It's
deadline.
3 o'clock on Wednesday.
Okay, but they still come in after that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I had one come in on Friday, not Wednesday, Friday at 2 minutes till 5, wanting a permit. And then what do you do?
Lynn?
And then on the website or the permit, you will indicate if anything is issued after the 3 o'clock on Wednesday, you will
Absolutely.
have a $50.
So the first step is changing it on the
Right.
fee schedule. On the actual fee schedule, there's vendor permit costs.
I just want them to have fair warning that that
They'll
can
have
happen.
warning. It'll be on the fee schedule. It'll be on the application, right where it says deadline 3 o'clock Wednesday, in big letters. It's the biggest thing on the whole page. You know, right now it already
Well,
is.
you'll still have somebody say, I
So-
didn't see it, but.
I mean, it's not a tool for revenue really for the city, because it's gonna be probably 4 to 5 every event, but hopefully after they get penalized a few times, they stop doing it, because it's a big inconvenience.
Do you plan to make a motion? May I ask a question first? Or you don't care?
You're the boss.
Can you extend the deadline any farther, like maybe to Thursday? Or is that inconvenient as well?
I don't think we should. I mean,
Okay. It was just a
It
question.
used to be later. When I first come here, I think it was Friday at noon, wasn't it? Was the cutoff?
yeah, but these events are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And,
So
you
it's
know,
more to
like I said,
manage.
you're creating
Okay.
permits, you're creating lists, there's deadlines, they're for a reason. We all have them in everyday life. Follow the rules. I mean,
Jerry,
Any other questions?
Glenn, you had your hand up. Did you have a question?
No?
Okay. Ed want to make a motion? Jerry?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the amendment to the scheduled charge of $50 late fee for vendor permits turned in after the deadline, as stated.
Okay.
Second.
Glenn seconds. Any further discussion? No. All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Item H, discussion and possible action on reserving the 20 cement picnic areas in the Bandera City Park on holiday weekends. Jill.
me again. So this really isn't me, but I'll talk about it. So we had discussed this in the past several times, with council, with Jay, with Public Works Director, with Will. And some of these big holiday weekends, we had discussed possibly marking these cement picnic tables that have designated trash cans and barbecue pits, and reserving them, numbering them, reserving them for, I think we said $50. This is just discussion right now, but reserving them for $50, putting reserved on them like we do the pavilions. Not every weekend, but on these busy weekends when we have this influx of people come in from San Antonio and surrounding areas, and it costs us a lot more to clean up the park afterwards. This would be an extra revenue, I guess, for the city. You know, $1,000 a day if you did the $50. It'd also be more work, but Will has said that on busy weekends, he's probably gonna have more reserve officer for security at the park that could kind of help police it. So, and you know, of course, we'll run into, since we've been talking about it, a lot of stuff has been brought up. You know, people taking the tables anyway, that kind of thing. Is it worth doing? Everybody's kind of divided on it. Yes, do it. Don't do it. It would also give, you know, an opportunity. I know locals are free to enter the park, but if they wanted that reserved spot, they would have an opportunity to reserve it as well. I mean, we have, you know, now going on 3 years for me, people are down there at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, camping overnight to be the first person in that gate on 4th of July and these weekends to get down there and reserve their spots. I mean, Will knows. So
we have folks that camp out in the Boys and Girls parking lot all night long, and they're not locals. They're from San Antonio, they're from Hondo, they're from Honduras and Chile, and all over. They camp out in tents in the Boys and Girls parking lot, so they can be first in line to get in. Mother's Day and Easter specifically, or it does. And this came up because other cities around here, I think Hondo is the one that was brought to my attention, does exactly this every year, and San Antonio does the same thing with their city parks. And I don't know if it's a good idea. We may lose people at, you know, some of these, but if it brings in more money and there's less people, there's also be less trash in our park, and less trash to pick up, and same amount of money brought in over the weekend and less trash sounds like a positive to me.
right, and that's the other thing. We spend on these 6 busy weekends, or I think we determined that there's 6 this year. You know, we're having to have double the amount of people down there, even through Monday, to clean up the mess that these people leave behind. They're not our local people. They do not care about our park. They're trashing it.
Visitors.
We drive around and give them trash bags, and they still, you know, pile the trash on top of the trash bags. The other thing that was an option too to go with this was raising the gate fee. You know, and this we have to decide coming up, so it'll be on future agenda, to possibly more than $5 per person on those busy weekends. Yeah, you're gonna lose some people that don't wanna pay it, like Will said, but do we care? Do we want those people in our park if they're not willing to pay for the beauty and to keep our park clean? So it's just something for y'all to discuss and decide what you wanna do at some time. We went down there and counted the tables. I made a map. I don't know if it made it in your packet. I apologize. I had a doctor's appointment, so I got here late. But I did make a map that I can share with council where I marked, you know, where all the tables are. Jay and I went down there and looked, and every cement picnic table does have a trash can and barbecue pit right next to it. So.
I wanted to call on Lenny, he had his hand up. Yes.
Yeah, I would like to postpone this until the next meeting so I can go out and do a little research, you know, what the citizens feel about it too,
Okay.
if that's all right with the council.
Anybody else have a comment or a question for Jill, or in general, or for our guests? Yeah, let me get to council first, and then I'll come out to you guys. Yes, Lynn.
How many wood tables are there, and would you be taking, so there's no more wood tables down there?
There's
No,
wood
there
tables
are.
down there, but you couldn't even think about trying to reserve them, because people move them all the time.
Right.
And they're sporadic. They don't have picnic tables or trash cans right next to them. That would be the beauty in having it, the whole section.
It's like a site.
Yeah, yeah. I think the other thing is, I think it's a good idea, but I know that it'll take an adjustment for people that have been coming here year after year, first come, first serve. So that will be a huge adjustment for people that have been coming year after year. And how are we gonna be able to do that where it won't be so such a big problem? You know, will we be putting it on our website? From things have changed, you have to reserve your table now. You know, I just kind of anticipate things like that happening, especially with that group that have been coming for 20 years or whatever, and they're at the gate at 6 o'clock in the morning and, you know, get to their table. So that would be I would like the transition to be a little smoother maybe on whatever we put in place for it to be have you thought about ways that you're gonna do that?
Well, we
I
talked
know we're
about
close.
putting it on the Facebook page, putting it on the city website, putting it in the newspaper. And, you know, we even had thrown around when we all kind of group talked about it, you know, maybe not doing it until later in the year so we could start telling these people on busy weekends, starting on 4th of July, there's gonna be a fee for blah, blah, blah. I mean, you're never gonna make everybody happy.
No,
There's
I
gonna be
know,
those
I
people
know.
that are gonna say, what, you can't do that? Well,
Yeah, we can.
so,
Yeah.
but we do have, you know, outlets to reach out to people, and social media unfortunately happens to be one of the big ones, so.
And we'll have, I'm sorry.
You gonna finish up?
And we're
Go ahead.
gonna set up on the website like a numbered tables, and then they'll be able to see on the website also how many tables are available that are left, so that they know, well, we can't go there and get a table, let's go to another park, or.
Well, I would assume we would get there at some point, yes.
Jerry,
I think that it sounds like a good idea, and I think once the visitors know that it needs to be reserved, it'll work out better for them in the long run. They won't have to go and park the night before, camp out. And the only thing is similar to what she was questioning, is working out the logistics, notifying as many people as soon as possible, whether that be sending a flyer, kind of like what the mayor does anyway with the water bills, or anything that goes out to the taxpayers. I think that's the most important, people to
Yeah, I
make
think
aware.
all the local people will probably know about it as just a discussion after this meeting tonight, but the people that are gonna be mad are the people coming from San Antonio, so.
But that's not so unusual either,
Yeah.
that a park requires you to reserve it,
Right.
a pavilion or a table.
on this side.
So it shouldn't really surprise them.
Yes, Glenn?
So if we institute this and the local people have a park pass, are they gonna be able to reserve a table without a fee?
Similar to the way the pavilion works now, I would assume.
I would say no,
Right.
because right
They
now
want
they
to
pay
pay a
for a
fee.
pavilion.
Right.
And otherwise I mean, I hate to say, then 20 local people can say, well, I want this one, and kind of defeats the purpose of making that little extra money to clean the park.
Well-
But that's just my opinion. I mean, it's not up to me.
Well, the park does belong to the citizens, you know. So, yeah, I think we need a little more discussion, more input in before we decide which way we wanna move on this.
I'd
I
like to
agree.
hop out here. We had some citizen comments, maybe? I'll
Just,
be right with you.
simply, is there any assistance in cleanup, of the park after these kind of events? Used to, we had our temporary residents at the Gray Bar Inn would come and, at the, jail would come and pick up trash along highways and stuff. Is that a possibility in the parks?
But if I can.
Used to.
Okay, go right ahead.
The only thing I know about what Renee is saying is that I know that when you do use people from the jail, that you have to have supervision. There has to be a supervision from the county, or, so that would be something that you would have to set up with them
Coordinate
to
with
see if
them.
they would be willing to let them come and do their community service or whatever that
So
way.
that was my thought after Mardi Gras, sort of put that in my head about when we have other events, not just Mardi Gras. I know that when we, in the Lions Club, we took on some young men who came out and helped us do setup and different things for community service, very hard-working, nice young men. Now, they were community service kids, but
If
I
I
would-
may, just,
Sure.
I do appreciate the discussion about the cleanup, but in the spirit of keeping on the topic of the picnic sites specifically and not the litter, and I know that is an issue, I'd like to kind of try to get us back on track. And Will, did you have something to add?
Yes, ma'am. I would submit to council that if council, it certainly would be y'all's decision, if y'all wanted to let the citizens have the picnic tables with their pass, I would say that that's probably y'all's choice. I could be wrong on that, but I would also submit that I don't see just a whole lot of our citizens down there, say, on an Easter weekend, because it's chock full of folks from Hondo and San Antonio.
That would be an option.
It's not really a, you know, but so I would say that it'd probably be safe to say that if we wanted to let them use their pass to secure a picnic table on one of these weekends, it's probably not gonna be an issue, and it probably is not gonna hurt us monetarily.
Okay. Well, go ahead, Lynn.
I was just gonna see if we could amend that motion, but that's fine.
Well, there's not a motion
Oh,
on the
I thought
table,
you
we're
made a
just
motion
discussing, and I think that it's a good idea for everybody to go out and do a little research and talk to your neighbors and friends and folks, and we will revisit this item again. There's no action necessary, so we can.
I was just gonna agree with the marshal that that could be an option, is for the citizens that live in the city to have free, you know, the tables for free.
Okay, so we can, go ahead. Good,
Well, I agree with Will,
okay.
but what it's gonna eliminate is all the backlash we're gonna get from it if we don't do that.
Jerry, did you have anything further before we move on?
Not any further discussion.
Okay.
I was looking to make a motion to postpone it until the next meeting.
You're
If
free to
that's-
make a
if that's long
motion
enough.
if you'd like to. I don't know that it's necessary because
Okay.
it's just been a discussion item. And for everybody to go out and bring their ideas back to try to hone in on.
I thought it
So
said
that might
just
be more
dis-
something
discussion
to,
and possible
for
action.
agenda for the next.
Yeah, it's just simply not necessary though, but you're free to if you'd like.
If it's not necessary.
Okay, so we'll see this again. Moving on to item I, recommendation from Review Committee on requesting an RFP for master plan from Simple City Design. And Jay?
Well, after we met with the two firms that presented their RFQs, Simple City Design was chosen to be the best fit for the city. And my recommendation would be that we go out now for an RFP with them for a complete scope of everything, and then we whittle it down to what we need done, especially by budget-wise, and move forward with that.
So to be clear, the agenda item is not to go into the agreement, is to go out for proposals that will then come back to council.
From Simple City though, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yes, Jerry?
What are two or three of the key reasons that you chose them without going through the?
Well, they better prepared, I'll start out that way, with the city of Bandera, and I think everyone that's involved will agree. They come out and walked around the city, actually went out, I believe, done some hiking around in the hill country, and but the other group was also very well qualified, but they didn't prepare themselves. And they even made some comments, you know, that they didn't really know that they wanted to jump on this project at one time, but they did because they was just finishing up with a big project. And I don't have no doubt that Simple City won't do a great job. Like I said, they were more prepared, or seemed more prepared and better prepared for the city of Bandera than the other organization did.
Do we have any time frames on if, once they get started?
I believe, if I remember right, and it's going to depend on what we actually come back with them and say, we want this, this, or this. But I believe they were right at a little less than a year, wasn't it? Somewhere in that neighborhood for the
For a
total
full master
scope.
To,
Yeah.
to actually finish it?
Yes, sir.
So within this year?
Well, if
Potentially.
we took them on today, we would say it'd be very close to the end of the year, but that's a total master plan. I don't see what we're gonna do may not take that long.
Great, thanks.
Yes, Lynn?
And what I wanted to add to that, Jerry, is that Rebecca and I did attend a 2-day seminar with Simple City in Kerrville, and we were both very impressed with their presentations and what they've done to different areas similar to our small city.
Jill?
So,
I
Oh,
just
I'm
wanted
sorry.
to clarify that after the last meeting, it was requested that a meeting be set with both companies and with the committee. So most of the committee being Rebecca, Suzanne, myself, and Jay were all present for the interviews with both companies. And then we all got back together as a committee after both interviews and discussed and had our high points. And actually, a P&Z member was also present at both meetings. So we came to this recommendation together as a committee, not as a single body.
Jerry, did you have any comment? I would like to make a motion to approve that the city administrator request an RFP for master plan proposal from Simple City Design.
I'll second that.
Thank you, and Jerry seconds that. Any further discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. It's been really pleasant thus far. Item J, consideration and possible action to place a 60-day moratorium on any future spending by the BEDC with the exception of promotional marketing and advertising in accordance with the BEDC bylaws, sections 1, administration, 1.05, amendment of bylaws, and 5, oversight by the Bandera City Council. And I'd like to, go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to postpone that until the next meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to postpone to the next meeting. Any further discussion, council? All in favor? Okay, we have Jerry, Lynn, and myself in favor. All opposed? Glenn would be opposed. The motion passes to postpone the agenda item. And item K, discussion and possible action or recommendation regarding the various programs of the Bandera Economic Development Corporation to specifically include what constitutes a separate project under those programs as compared to what constitutes a project under state law, to determine when the city council should approve sequential projects or project elements that collectively total more than $10,000 when said projects involve the same application, or excuse me, applicant, business, or location. And Lynn, would you like to highlight this agenda item?
Well, I spoke with the city attorney on how to put this on the agenda, and that's where all of this language came from. Because really what I wanted to address is that the applicants that submit different applications for the different programs that the EDC has for our business applicants, that they be considered one project, and that the accumulative sum that goes over $10,000 has to come to council for approval. That the projects for infrastructure, for building improvement, for facade, for signs, all be considered, if the applicant is in the same location, it's the same applicant, it's the same business, that they all be considered one project, not to exceed the $10,000 limit that is quoted in the Bandera bylaws for the Economic Development Committee, and also the process and procedures.
Okay.
And I'm open for discussion with anybody else, with everybody else as well.
May I? So I just wanted to comment that not to exceed $10,000 without council approval.
Correct.
So
Correct, that's what I meant,
that
yes.
collective, if it were multiple incentives, that you would want to see that come to council.
The total
if
sum,
if
if the total
value
sum is
10.
over $10,000, that it has to come to council for approval. That would be my motion. Does anybody else have any, can others discuss, or?
Yeah, I
if they
don't
have
see
it?
a hand. Yes.
I'd just like to comment that I thought it was our understanding that we were gonna let the EDC, get through their process of revamping their processes and procedures and stuff before we start interjecting stuff into those, so.
Okay.
Anyway, that's
I would like to make a comment as well, and it kind of coattails off of you, Glenn. I think with the big picture, and I would appreciate hearing from any input from EDC members that are here this evening. This is a little bit piecemeal, in my opinion, because the idea is that the entire booklet is going to be coming before council to be amended and approved. And in my discussion with the city attorney, should this motion pass, it's simply a council consensus, a council opinion that would then be presented to the EDC for them to make that change in their where it is located in their policies and procedures. So even should this motion pass, the change doesn't go into effect until you bring the procedures and bylaws back to council for approval.
And I thought it was my understanding that the council has the oversight of the EDC to direct them on what changes we want to.
Yes.
I certainly would like to have a workshop and be able to hash all of this out without piecemealing it. Rebecca, we put a moratorium in place. They had 90 days to come to us to bring us something written, and I certainly want to work with the EDC. I want them to be able to conduct business, but this was something that I really thought needed to be taken care of today, and then we can set up a workshop to work out the rest of the issues that the council may have with how those programs are going. These programs are all new. I know that they've only been here for since 2017. So we're learning what's working and what's not working.
Okay, may I just, in response, and I believe that I understand that your intention with this agenda item was to make the change go into place. But what I'm following up with is that after discussing this with the city administrator, because I was trying to find exactly where in their policies and procedures does this need to be changed. Well, the piece that we're missing is that the language then has to be attorney approved, and the policy itself has to be changed and amended in order to take effect. And I'm happy to read this conversation with
No,
Dan.
I trust what you're saying is the truth. I mean, I'm gonna trust that what you're saying is the truth. It's just that, again, already in the bylaws and in the policies and procedures, and I don't think I need to read it again, that they're not supposed to exceed the $10,000. And what the attorney, I got from the attorney is, what do you define as a project? And what I want for this, what I would like for the majority of the council to agree on is that one project is a total accumulation.
A suite of incentives,
Yes.
essentially. Can I just say that, again, we haven't voted, so we don't have a council consensus at this time, but you have EDC members here that are hearing the expressed concern, and, I know if I were in a city council appointed board member, I would get the spirit of the intention moving forward, and so if this is the consensus, then it will be as a directive to make this change.
So can I add then, and I'm sure that
Excuse me,
this is not
Jerry's
something.
been trying to get in this conversation.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay, I apologize.
And
Paul,
mine
I
may not be as
apologize.
important, but that's okay. I just wanted to add to that. That was a recommendation or a consideration by EDC. So I'll give them credit on that. I believe that was one of the items that Tony did bring before us as a possible action, at some point.
Good. Oh, I'm sorry.
I removed my motion for various reasons, the previous motion to place a moratorium. Because after looking at the other agenda items on here, I felt that one of the main things that I feel that we need to accomplish is just that in itself, limiting the different programs to one project and for an cumulative amount of $10,000. So that's where I'm kind of at on that. I do respect the fact that EDC did already bring that up, So I don't think there's resistance. It doesn't feel as if there's resistance there, but I don't know how the whole board feels about that.
I'd like to call on Board President Tony Cruz at this time.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a little bit of an update. Originally, Lynn is actually doing what we asked for months ago when all of this first came up. Because y'all had a lot of conversations and there was never really a consensus from council. There was a lot of debate and a lot of discussion, but as a council, you never told us which direction to go. So what Lynn's doing on this one item is exactly what we asked for. Now, how it's written, I think there's a lot of holes in it, because total of $10,000, is that per meeting, per month, per year, per whatever? I mean, is it gonna go on for the end of the time? Those people can only get one, if they don't ask for everything in 2020, are they never gonna be able to ask for it again in 25, because, or are we gonna have to add it to the total we gave them in 20? So there's a lot of discussion and a lot of holes in that. So I just wanted to make that point. So although I appreciate what you're saying, this is definitely something, a part of the topic that's been bigger picture. Again, we meet once a month. January, we discussed and finalized our incentives and discussed on what changes we wanted to do there. Our plan is to do bylaws and processes and procedures. We're gonna try to knock those out this month and next month. April 16th is when I have to give my annual report to y'all. I'll be working with Suzanne, the mayor, to give a report that gives a better understanding of where we are as a whole. That kind of seems to have started out all of this in the beginning. And we're also talking about, once that report is done and we give our suggestions and what changes we want to present, and I'll just like y'all to know that the attorney is also reviewing our bylaws for any kind of legislative changes that need to be made too. So there's a lot of different things going on here. So there's a lot of pieces that are moving that you may not be aware of. But we are doing all this, and by April 16th, I will give you an idea of a summarize of why we've made the decisions we made, the pros and the cons, and hopefully then we will all be fresh in our minds and be able to do a workshop after that meeting, or maybe the following week or something like that, and then move forward. But it's gonna take time, because this is a big job and we do only meet once a month. So although you may not be aware of everything, I try very hard in our meetings to give statuses of everything that has happened for the entire month, so that everybody's aware of it and it's on record of what we're doing. Anyway, that's just an update, and although I appreciate what you're saying, Lynn, it's a bigger picture than just one item, and I 100% agree that this, if anything was to be done now, it would be a piecemeal, and I don't think the entire discussion as a whole is being addressed.
Lynn,
Thank
may I
you.
ask, thank you, Tony, may I ask you if you have any specific suggestion on these details about the timeline, the time frame per year?
Well, that's what I was, I know that all needs to be discussed as well, on do we only allow the applicants to come, once a year? Or are we gonna expect them to be in business for more than a year, or 2 years, or 3 years, depending on the sales tax income? Because the EDC, we're investing in these people by giving them this money. It's supposed to be based off sales tax revenue, and there is a lot of other things that need to be addressed, and I was hoping that we could have a workshop in order to do that. I would like to set a workshop up for the city council if possible. Because for me, my understanding from the attorneys is that the city council has the oversight of the EDC. We can tell them what to do, and even though this may be piecemeal, it is a beginning. It is moving forward on what I think the whole city council, when we voted for the moratorium in the first place, is trying to accomplish. I think we all should work together, but we obviously have not been able to. We had that moratorium for 90 days and nothing came out of that.
Was it 60?
Or 60 days, I'm sorry, 60 days. And it didn't come out of that. So what my understanding is they wanted the city council to direct them on what they wanted done. So this was the reason why I put this on the agenda this way. And the rest of the stuff we can work out.
Okay.
And I I would like to see, I would like to see a deadline that we give the EDC to get this accomplished, instead of, you know, well, another month or another 30 days or another 60 days. We should give them a deadline.
Jerry?
Under section 505, there are already in place guidelines that, trying to remember, don't think I'll say it verbatim, but it's for the previous 2 years that they've received an amount of $50,000, then that's the limit for them. And that's the guideline by 505, and I couldn't tell you the exact section of that, but that is under there. And I think that's a good starting point right there, a 2-year period.
May I, while you look for that?
Huh?
May I make a comment while you
Sure.
look for that?
That's okay.
I found in the
Might not need it.
EDC policies and procedures on page 7, allowed project types. And from that, what is currently in place, I'm gonna read. Because the city of Bandera has a population of less than 20,000, the following is allowed. Listen to this sentence. I don't think it's complete, but maybe you can explain it in a minute. The land, buildings, equipment, facilities, expenditures, targeted infrastructure, and improvements found by the corporation's board of directors to promote new or expand business development, no requirement for the certain creation of jobs, period. However, the EDC may not undertake a project authorized by this section that requires an expenditure of more than $10,000 until the city council adopts a resolution authorizing the project after giving the resolution at least 2 separate readings. And I'd like to go ahead and add my suggested change to that. Would be, however, the EDC may not undertake a project or combination of projects being awarded to an individual owner, business, address, or entity, to include the city, authorized by this section and blah, blah, blah. So it's just this brief statement. It's a suggestion for a change that simply says, or combination of projects being awarded to an individual entity, owner, business, or address. I don't know what's up with that first sentence.
So again, so the whole thing is that we tried the workshop before and we weren't very productive at it. So I like the fact that you're getting your thoughts together, and we are in agreement that we are going to come back to you and have all of our thoughts together, and we are going to discuss them in great detail. And then we are going to get together and we are going to have a workshop, and we are going to hear your consensus, our consensus, we're gonna talk about it, and ultimately it's gonna be your decision. But I would like the respect for our board, which I believe we deserve, to at least present to you what challenges we've had in the past, what we've already discussed, what we would like to see changed, because nobody knows it better than us. Our board has been fairly consistent for the last 3 years. And all of these things that are getting brought up, it's interesting because the last year or so, we haven't even done a lot of the stuff that's getting brought up because we made a decision that we didn't want to support that. So it's interesting that although it is valid, it doesn't mean that we have made existing and current decisions that negate what you're saying. The agenda item that you're talking right now, definitely it's worded specifically by the state as a certain way, and our attorney, it's you can interpret it different ways. And I appreciate the fact that you would want oversight on what excess of $10,000 we're giving to one project. Again, when we have the master plan in place and we're all working to the same end goal, there's going to be a lot more working together and a lot more insight. And I don't think that we have done anything as a board that recently that we haven't learned from our mistakes. And that's a lot that I can say for a lot of people. We're very conscientious about what we do, and whether you agree with it or not, we have our reasons and we will justify them and debate them, and then ultimately it's going to be your decision. But I really would like to be efficient with it and talk about it as a whole, and so that we can do this better.
All right, I'll get right back to you. Jerry?
I feel that 60-day moratorium that got lifted early I originally had asked for 180 days at that moratorium, and we amended it so we could come to an agreement on that. I have not seen one thing in the less than 60-day moratorium. I think it was shy of, what, a week?
We let it dissolve,
Yeah.
we let it expire, we
Oh,
didn't
okay.
lift it.
Either way, and not one action or any special meetings or any workshops that I'm aware of were ever performed by EDC during those 60 days.
Just because you're not aware of it. As a council, we did not. We met as our board. We lost our admin and we had special meetings to hire.
Okay,
So
well,
we've
that's-
had
that's
some
fine.
other issues
Okay.
going on that
I
have
still
prevented us
have
to
the
do that.
floor.
So I'm sorry that if we're not jumping through the hoops
Well-
that you're requesting. But
Okay, I believe you had stopped speaking and Tony was
Okay,
responding, but
that's
do you
fine.
have something further?
Yeah, and I think with the motion or the,
We don't have a motion at this point.
right, the discussion of postponing that may have not been in the best interest. After now looking back, I feel that we're getting resistance. Once again, the 60-day moratorium, not one thing was accomplished. And there was discussion about potentially what might be done. So now I think it is time, before more of the money is spent, which I know that there's quite a amount that's still pending approval by the board. I think that now is the time that we need to go ahead and get a handle on this without additional spending in the meantime, so we can have time to have these workshops, joint and special sessions, special meetings, which I hope that we get to that point here in a few minutes.
So do I
So,
need to make a motion
we-
to
Rebecca,
vote?
may I
We're
say
still,
something?
in just a moment, please, yes, but just a moment. We are still under this agenda item K, and there can be a motion, or there can be, you can make a motion regarding various programs, I mean, as it's stated. So, but again, at this point, what we would be doing here is developing a consensus of council that is directed to the EDC. So how you choose to phrase it is up to you.
And that's what the EDC has wanted us to do, is to direct them, and that is what I'm doing here. This is the first step to directing them. After that, I'll be very glad to get together and have a workshop and iron out the rest of it. But moving forward with this motion, I think is pertinent to moving forward on something that we have been, the council has tried to establish. And like I said, I have been told several times by several of the EDC members to give them direction. And now I'm giving them
So,
direction.
But there's no motion. Would you care to
I'd like
make a
to
motion?
make a motion as stated on 5K. Discussion and possible action or recommendation regarding the various programs.
May I interrupt you,
Sure.
please? That's not an adequate motion. I mean, just the first few words you read make that not a motion.
Okay, well,
So
I asked the
phrase
city
motion.
attorney on how to address this motion,
No,
how
this-
to address this, and this is what, but okay,
Okay.
so I would like to make a motion that if an applicant comes to, and this is thinking out loud, when an
Wait a
applicant,
second.
okay,
Okay. Think about it and phrase your motion.
I thought this was gonna be my motion, so I didn't.
Well, you started
didn't.
kind of saying other things in the middle of it.
The
I'm gonna
item
give you
starts
the-
with action or recommendation, so you
Yeah, so
can't
what
read both.
is the recommendation?
You need
is
to
all
make
I'm
a
asking.
motion.
And I want you to take your time and not feel pressured. I'm not gonna move on without you. Pat, did you have something you'd like to add?
I did have one thing to say.
Yes, ma'am.
All of the requests, and we're talking, again, major, I don't know, I've been off of EDC quite a while now. But I think Lynn hit it right on the nail head. Anything over $10,000 has been brought to this city council for at least 2 readings. So you've had 2 opportunities to hear if EDC was ever going to give, and it would be readings, and it would say the exact same address. Up to $10,000 is going to 1234. We're $10,000 for X, 1234 Main Street. I had to go through 2 readings of that.
Yes, I'd like to respond to that. Jerry, go ahead.
I'd like to say as somebody that actually went in front of EDC in the past year with multiple project requests, or multiple grant requests, that the way I read it was, and again, this was my interpretation when I read it, that anything cumulatively over $10,000 was going to go to city council. That's how I had prepared everything that I had brought to EDC. And before I withdrew right at the second meeting that was required on it. But it was my understanding from feedback from EDC last May that if they had decided to go ahead with it, that the next step would have been me going to city, or my proposal going to city council. Just my experience in the last year.
Yes, Jerry.
Projects are defined by the state. It's defined under 501 and 501.002 and under 505.151. And it's defined as this. Project means land, buildings, equipment, facilities, expenditures, and improvements included in the definition of project under Chapter 501, as I referred to, more specifically 501.002. And that's for all the projects combined is the way I interpret this. And if I'm not mistaken, the attorney, our city attorney, also agreed with me on that.
Okay. When do you need some more time?
So a project is all the other programs, and that's, I think, how it needs to be referred to. All these individual incentives, the building grants, the facade grants, and everything else, those can total no more than $10,000 cumulatively, and that is defined. So that's my standing on it.
Okay. I feel like I want to clarify that we're all on the same page, because Patricia, when you made your comment, I wasn't sure that I was thinking of it the same way that you were. Yes, if one incentive was gonna be awarded for over 10,000, and actually your incentives have a $10,000 cap because you didn't wanna have to bring them in front of council. However, when you were awarding 3 incentives to a tune of $30,000, and I'm just making something up, that didn't have to come in front of council, and that is the issue that we have. Is that, is everybody on the
That's the
same
point that I'm
page?
trying to make.
And so Pat, you were right.
Yes.
That everything that was over 10,000 was coming in front of council, as long as it wasn't 3 incentives bundled. If it, only in the event that it was a, performance agreement valued over $10,000. Okay? And I wanna point out that even the city approved for the city administrator to maneuver through the EDC in the same fashion when we split out the baseball field or softball field project. 2 different $10,000 grants, so that they didn't have, so that we didn't come in front, have to come in front of ourselves to request an expenditure over $10,000. So I think the idea, if I'm not misunderstanding, is that we want it to work the same way, whether it's the city or a business, and we're not addressing limitations on how many or how many years between programs, but
Not at this time.
just, okay.
I don't think we should have to, or
Okay,
need to at this
I'm
point.
gonna call on Tom,
I
please.
just wanted to give a specific clarification. One of the most recent grants that were approved was for TJ's. They received 3 separate grants.
Mhm.
None of them were over $10,000.
Mhm.
Collectively, they were $18,000. And so that did not come before city council.
That
And so
is
if the council
exactly,
says
case in point.
that those are the ones that we want to take a look at, that makes sense to me. But for things over, expenditures over $10,000, requires a posting in the newspaper, 60-day moratorium, 2 readings at city council, and a public hearing. So do we want to add that to everything, or do you just want to council approval? That's
That's a
another
good point.
specific point that needs to be thought through and clarified when we, in why we run into problems if we're doing things piecemeal. That needs to be a part of the whole discussion.
Lynn?
Or do you just keep it under $10,000 for all accumulative? Just keep it under $10,000 and it won't have to go through that whole process.
Well, but if you're asking me, some people deserve more than $10,000. And so we make the decision because we do a lot of research on that.
Mhm.
And the council always has the option of saying no, or at least you will if these things come to you collectively.
Okay. Tony?
So, I agree with all of this, and it's just funny, because I think about all of the discussions that we've ever had and things that have brought up. Those don't leave my mind, ever, and I think about them all the time. And I think about the fact that the reason this was brought up originally was that, was because they thought that we were trying to find a loophole. But then out of the other side of their mouth, they would say things like, well, we support the historic buildings, and we support this, and we support that. And so I would challenge you, I mean, to find, I mean, TJ's was 18,000, yes, that's true. But the bigger projects that we've done have not been to find the loophole. It was big restorations of historic buildings. It was the museum support. And economic development, although our budget comes from the sales tax, because ultimately that should be, you know, if our economy is strong, then your sales tax are gonna get bigger, and that should replenish our fund and give more money to give out, and if we're doing our job right? But sales tax is not the only purpose and not the only indicator of a good economy. The fact that we are restoring some of these buildings and incentivizing the building owners to put money into our communities and restoring some of our historic buildings, I'm not 100% sure a lot of them, number one, would have been able to be done to the level that they were done. We're requiring ADA compliance. We're doing other things to build our community up and to help our property owners so that we can be a stronger, bigger economic, you know, base and stronger thing to build on. You know, one of the ones that everybody keeps talking about is the developer with the Tractor Supply. You know, we've worked in partnership with the city and saved $250,000. So what I'm saying is, again, one thing, if you say that you're just gonna give a suggestion, that's fine. I mean, we'll take it. We've listened to this. It's on our list already. But I think that
We don't have a
ultimately,
motion, so.
I think that ultimately, that once we have everything discussed and fresh in our mind, it would be a great time to get together and do a workshop.
Okay.
And I don't believe we should rush it. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Heard. Lynn?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
When the cumulative of all projects for the same applicant, business, or location, that be considered one project if the accumulate of it exceeds 10,000 or more, that has to come to approval for council. It has to come to council approval. And I know that did not make a whole lot of sense.
Did you get that, Jill?
Yeah, she stops right there.
I'm stopping.
That's a motion, so
Yeah.
move forward.
Okay. We have
I'll
a
second
motion and a second. And all in favor of the motion as stated. Would you like to, Jill, can you read that back?
No.
Okay.
Second, all in
I'm
favor.
leaving now because I think that you're making fun of me.
No,
And
I'm not.
I don't like that at all.
I'm very sorry you feel that way. We have a
I don't-
motion
I don't-
and a
I think
second.
that this
I
is a
can read
very
most of it back, but I'll have to get it
important
off the
motion to get
recording.
done,
To get
that
done
we
right,
need
I
to
agree.
Get, control over some of this spending, and this is the way that I intended to do it tonight.
As I asked the city secretary to read the motion back as she's recording it for public record, it would give you the opportunity to amend it if necessary, if you would like that opportunity, Len. That was the spirit of my statement.
And I cannot read it back because I didn't write it all down because I'm gonna get the other half of it off the recording. But I can read part of it if you wanna fill in the
I'll
blanks.
try to repeat it again. I'd like to make a motion that when An applicant comes to the EDC and the accumulation of all of the projects that the applicant has submitted for one location, one applicant, one business, that it be considered one project and not to exceed $10,000 without coming to council for approval.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there, would you care to use this language by any chance that's taken specifically? If you would care to amend your motion in that way?
Can I read it first? Because I don't know
Please,
what it's you're trying to tell me here.
It would be the adjustment to this section of the policies and procedures, just as I read in the.
Right, and I was in total agreement of all of
Okay,
that you read.
so it would start right there, and it would, just to simply add the language to the paragraph stated, page 7, allowed projects, project types, and it's quoted right here. Can you see that? Starting with the word "or."
Why don't you do it for me?
Because it's your motion, it would be your amendment to make if you so choose.
All right.
And
So
then-
I would like for it to continue to amend the motion that I just stated. I would like for it to be amended to be added to the policy and procedures, page 7, allowed project types. The following is allowed, is that where you want me to? I'm sorry, I'm
That's
flustered
okay.
now.
I know, I'm sorry. Starting right there with the word
Or a combination of projects be awarded to an individual entity, owner, business, or address.
Okay. So,
That would be considered one project.
okay, so Jerry, would you care to second
I'll
the
second
amendment?
that.
Okay.
Amendment.
That is an insert to the current policy and procedure on page 7, allowed project types, to be inserted into the second sentence as read aloud before during the meeting. And Lynn, do you have any further discussion?
That might too.
Yes, Glenn?
Don't act that way, I haven't said too much. Okay, the agenda item says discussion and possible action or recommendation. So is this a directive to the EDC or is this a recommendation?
I read
The-
it as a directive.
The effect of this motion, and this is what the city attorney agreed with, the effect of this motion, if approved, would require an amendment to the appropriate documentation, documents. This is a recommendation for the amendment to the document that then has to be put before the attorney and brought back to council for final approval. I think the EDC understands what we're getting at.
It's just that I would like for it to be effective immediately.
So, it is merely a council consensus or directive to make a change, and that it does not actually have the effect of the change until the document is amended officially. And that's the opinion of the attorney.
Okay,
So to clarify,
yes,
we're saying this is what we want you to do.
and that we are going to amend the bylaws.
Policies
To
and
re-
procedures.
On the
Policy
question,
and procedures.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? And all opposed? We have Jerry, Lynn, and Rebecca in favor, and Glenn opposed.
Thank you, Rebecca, for your help.
I'm sorry that you
No.
thought I was hurting, or that I hurt you.
No.
Okay, we are on item 6, requests and announcements. Item A is requests for council for items to be placed on future agenda. And other than what was tabled this evening or postponed this evening on record, do we have anything else at this time?
can we schedule a workshop, or we're gonna wait
I would
until
like to,
the EDC comes to us?
So,
I have a request.
go right ahead.
I would like to request a special meeting for February 26th at 5 p.m. to discuss EDC bylaws, policies and procedures, and possible action.
Okay. So you have that for the mayor to review.
Special meeting February 26th at 5 o'clock to discuss EDC's bylaws.
Bylaws, policies, and procedures.
Okay.
Not
with-
the incentives.
And possible action.
I can get it off the recorder.
Okay. Lynn?
That's what I was gonna ask for as well.
Glenn? No. Any announcements? Item B, announcements by council. I have a few, if y'all have a minute. Okay, so Jill, city secretary, and I are attending a Hill Country Alliance workshop on reducing erosion and building soil. That's being held here in the county. The registration was $10, and we both had a desire to attend, and one way that I hope to apply that, and I want to tell you guys a little program that I'm working on with Jay. There's no aspect of it now that needs to come before council on an agenda, so I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm going kayaking with some BCRAGD, Bandera River Authority guys and scientists to explore the erosion issues in City Park. And
Exciting.
between the city, Hill Country Alliance, River Authority, and Texas Parks and Wildlife, we are planning a riparian planting workshop program for the spring. And so once that meeting happens, at that point, Jay will determine if anything needs to come before council for approval. But I just wanted y'all to know that that was going on, and that we're working on doing some damage control and restoration on the river banks. And then one other thing I had is that Jill and Suzanne and I think just the three of us are going to the elected officials conference the first week of March, which we will be away for our first regularly scheduled meeting of March. And however Jill and the attorney decide to handle that meeting would have to, since we didn't discuss it and decide anything, I don't know if it'll have to be posted, canceled, and a special meeting called or something to that effect. So just a heads up on that.
Okay.
I would like to announce that I think the Mardi Gras parade and the whole weekend was a huge success, and that a lot of the business owners that I spoke to said they had very good business, exceptional business on Saturday, that they took in a lot of money.
That's awesome.
So I thought that was really good.
Okay. Item 7, Glenn?
Yes, I'd like to adjourn this meeting.
Well, I have a couple
So
things,
moved.
yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
I missed Jerry on item
I withdraw
6B.
my motion.
Well, thank you, Glenn.
February 26th, is it the flood management?
Oh, that's right, thank you.
Early flood warning system, they're gonna have training on it. I think it's,
At the
don't hold me to it, I should have the times wrote down, but I believe it's 10, there's 2. 10 o'clock, I think, is in Medina Library, and the 2 o'clock is at BEC.
It's
Does that
probably
sound
on the
right?
River Authority's website.
Yeah. Sorry I didn't have better complete
That's okay.
communication or
You shared the reminder.
information on that. And then also just, I don't know if I can do this at this point, just a little progress update? Is this out of order?
Is it an announcement?
Oh, well, yeah, I consider it an announcement, I consider it great news.
Okay,
And
thank you.
please correct me if I'm incorrect on this, Jay, but it sounds as if TxDOT is gonna move the speed limit signs
That is correct.
there on
yes.
16 at
Yes.
that massive congestion mess where old San Antonio Road connects there. Those signs are gonna be moved to the proper positions. And then we also, the rest of the studies are at least, they're moving forward on
Yes, they are.
scheduling those other studies, the speed.
We're gonna do a speed study coming into town and going out.
Yeah,
Okay,
So-
that's good.
good news.
Thanks. Is that all? Okay. Glenn? You're still here. Item 7.
I'm not in the mood now. move to adjourn.
And Jerry
I'll second
seconds,
that.
all in favor,